40% of what you pay doesn't go to the capitalist who is selling you that stuff, it goes to Jeff Bezos. That's a cloud rent, and he is a new form of feudal lord.
Capitalism survived for about 300 years, and these 300 years were 400 years ago.
History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen.
It is crazy to think that the possibility of feudalism coming back is a thing in 2024. I'm out of words, but Yannis and Sam have really good points that I would love to explore. But before we get too ahead of the game, let's talk about feudalism. Feudalism back in Europe during the Middle Ages was a way to organize society. If you think about it as a pyramid, at the top you have a king and a queen. They own all of the land and they can give chunks to the nobles. The nobles in return pledge their loyalty as well as their military support. The nobles have people underneath them, the knights and the peasants. The knights protect the land as well as the peasants, and the peasants, of course, do all the heavy lifting. They do all the work, the crops, and then they provide those back as form of rent. So, as per Yannis and Sam, it looks like we're headed back to that system, of course with its nuances with technology, as they call them the techno lords. But let's talk about this because it is really, really interesting. Okay, there are two key factors why feudalism declined. One of them is the increase of trade and the creation of cities. So as more people spread out, they relied less and less on this feudal system. And then the second one is a little bit more gloomy. It's the Black Death. If you remember, something horrible that happened during the 14th century where pretty much half of the population in Europe died, unfortunately. And these two main factors led to feudalism to eventually decline and die, and there was this trickling effect that happened, which pretty much led to capitalism and the birth of the middle class. So in any healthy capitalistic society, the middle class is the largest piece of the pie, and of course, it is the backbone of the economy that allows the market to continue to operate in this cycle. And when we have a healthy middle class, for the most part, the economy is pretty stable. During like periods of the 90s and even the 80s, etc., it looks like, people were able to buy $250,000 homes, and they were able to have the vacations and the multiple vehicles and stuff like that, which, consumerism aside, it seems like it was less of a stressful time. And of course, there's always things happening within countries, but from an economic perspective, it was pretty abundant. So what happens now is that the middle class has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And if you live in America, I'm pretty sure you felt it with the average starter home now, at least $1 million. Like it'll set you back at least $1 million, completely unaffordable. The income has not been even keeping up with inflation, unemployment, the cost of McDonald's and Starbucks just keeps skyrocketing, and it is, of course, a very unsustainable system. Unfortunately, when there is such a gap between poor people and rich people, there's, of course, all of this internal conflict, which is one of kind of the ingredients that can incentivize this more feudal kind of society. But one of the points that Yannis makes in terms of techno-feudalism, this kind of twist on it, is that remember how we said that kings and queens used to own all of the land? So now replace land for cloud capital. This is all of the infrastructure, those server farms out in the middle of nowhere that host all of the applications and services that you and I use on a daily, right? That especially are the backbone of the gig economy. Uber, Amazon, Etsy, you name it. If you are a merchant, right, of sorts, you're in one of these platforms because this is the only way you can reach the people that are mainly online and are not accessible to you. Now, what happens when this infrastructure is owned and limited by a handful of people? In this case, the Jeff Bezos, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks of the world, right? And when the barrier of entry into that sphere of the economy is so high, almost virtually impossible for an average person to get in, then there is this asymmetric leverage that these people have, right? And you can only hope that they have the best interests of society in mind, which, I mean, if historically shows us, is that absolute power always corrupts people. So again, hopefully we don't repeat that same pattern, but one of the other arguments that Sam makes is that capitalism has pretty much been gone for over 100 years, and there's only been this illusion of the American dream, that it is not really possible for the 90% of the population, but they need us to believe that it is so that they can continue to sell us the lie and continue to push the products and the consumerism, which of course is completely unsustainable. I mean, not to mention the stress it causes to our planet Earth, just due to finite natural resources, as well as the political tension as the buying power for the majority just goes away. And so I think we're definitely in a point where change is going to happen. I'm not sure if we need to, fulfill the prophecy, so to speak. I think there's times like these, it's more of a paradigm shift, right? We have the boomers that are about to exit the world, so to speak. They're going to soon be removed from positions of power, and some of them will pass away. So some of that wealth will get redistributed. So I think that change, and I think me as a millennial and this new generation that's going to be kind of the new generation that's gonna in a weird way rise. I think it's a good opportunity for us to evaluate what is it that we really want society to reflect, because I think we were pretty much indoctrinated a system that's no longer working and that hasn't been working for a long time. And I think we're just at that breaking point where everything is revealing itself, and we're put in the situation where we have to almost face a lot of the realities that we maybe never had to evaluate, right? I believe, and I've been seeing a lot of the younger generation, Gen Zs, also struggle tremendously, which makes a lot of sense, right? And I think it's a good time for us to really start becoming more introspective and start analyzing what is it that we want, what is it that doesn't make sense, right? Does it make sense to work 40 hours a week for what, right? And is it possible to have a new societal structure? What role is AI going to play? I think this is a great time to be alive. I don't want this video to be pessimistic. I think it's important to educate ourselves, to know what's out there, to know what people are thinking, to know some of the warning signs so that we can prepare. And again, I'm going to link both Sam's speech, which is incredible, as well as Yanni's interviews, so that you can listen to them for yourself. They make great points and great observations. And as always, make sure you stay smart and creative, and please like and subscribe, because apparently that's something we have to say to help this channel reach more people. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.